especially happy Mark Malusis today. You just get happier and happier and happier as the winning continues to pile up. 11 straight for the Yankees. Well, it is good. A 2-game sweep over what was the second hottest team in baseball, and that was the Braves. Another home run from Stanton last night, so that's 4 in the last 7 games. You get a DJ LeMahieu 2-run home run, only his 9th of the year, so they've been coming in spurts, but pleasant surprise. DJ's actually having a really great month. You get Odor with a homer. How about Gary Sanchez with an RBI single? That's 2 RBI singles for this series, and you love to see that. Yankees are playing great, getting a little help along the way, too. We'll get into that, but you're feeling awesome. You get an off day. You're heading to the West Coast, but there's just more to the story. And the more to the story is Aroldis Chapman, because as good as this feels for Yankee fans, you're now back to just where you expected to be, which is challenging for the AL East title, right? That's where you're at. You're back to where this team was always supposed to be, which looked dead and gone of only a month and a half ago. You're back to where you should have always been. So now you have to look ahead, right? You have to be able to look ahead and wonder what the Yankees are going to do with Aroldis Chapman. Since he's come back from the IL, 3 appearances, 2 of which he's had to get pulled in the 9th inning. It was Peralta who cleaned up the mess last night. It was Lucas Littke who cleaned up the mess in Boston. And the Yankees have not solved this Aroldis Chapman issue. Now, you can also add on top of it, bad news for Zach Britton yesterday. Looks like he's going to get another opinion when they're out in California from another specialist, but Aaron Boone floated out the idea of surgery. I think at this point, probably be surprised if Britton gets back to pitching or maybe even his old self. Yeah. That, to me, is kind of out the window. You have a Chapman issue. It went away for a little bit. He had like a good stretch there in July. It's come back now. And even the most positive Yankee fan, which is great, you should be positive. This is a happy time. But you also can't just put your head in the sand and say everything's fine here. It's not fine. Aroldis Chapman is not fine. Add on to the fact that he has served up season-ending home runs in the last 2 postseasons to Brasso and Jose Altuve. You can't tell me you're not a little bit concerned about this. For as good as Jonathan Loáisiga has been, for as good as Wandy Peralta has been, you have Chad Green, although he has a penchant to give up home runs. If Aroldis Chapman is continuing to close games for the Yankees, can they win a World Series? I don't know, Moose.
Well, I don't know if he necessarily is going to continue to close games for the Yankees. I don't know.
They keep rolling them out there in the 9th inning.
They do right now, but doesn't necessarily mean that won't change and that game plan won't change. I don't disagree. It's kind of everything could be true, right? The Yankees are riding the 11-game winning streak. You feel really, really positive about this group. Yes, the Yankees do still have issues when you look at, say, Chapman last night. But everything's coming up Yankee right now when you're going to Wandy Peralta with the bases loaded against Freddie Freeman, and he's throwing, one changeup after another, 5 consecutive after falling behind 3-1 in the count before getting the fly out deep out to left field to Joey Gallo to end the game. That's when things are working out for you. That's when you know what, the baseball gods are smiling on you. You can't do anything wrong. That everything that we saw in the first half where they couldn't get out of their own way, well, that has completely changed right now. And, you mentioned, Aroldis as he's, perspiring like Patrick Ewing on the mound last night, inability to spot his fastball and to throw his fastball and relying on the off-speed pitches and, getting, at one point in time he'd thrown more balls than strikes, in 20 or 21 pitches on the mound, Maggie. And you're watching him and you say, well, he's got to figure it out. And I think for kind of the broader picture, well, the Yankees have turned their season around without Aroldis Chapman being brilliant. That's a positive, right? I mean, they really
better
but he is
for a stretch.
He was better for a stretch, but the Yankees are riding this hot winning streak, and they haven't needed Aroldis Chapman to be what Chapman was for the first 6-7 weeks of this MLB regular season. That's a positive. The negative is, you mentioned the Zach Britton news, right? If he has to head for, say, Tommy John surgery or any sort of surgery, and he's been on the IL 3 times this year, and he's seeking a second and third opinion, well, that means that you take Britton out of the equation, and Britton hasn't been particularly good this year, right? So now you look at Loáisiga, you look at Green, you look at the other names that they have in the back end of that bullpen, you say, well, is it good enough, right? Can Loáisiga, say, step in and be the closer for this team. Well, then what the hell do you do with Aroldis Chapman, who the Yankees handle with kid gloves? The Yankees, you had the manager apologizing when they made the decision to walk Carlos Santana against the Kansas City Royals. Tells you all about the mindset of the pitcher, right? They want to, can Aroldis Chapman step in and be a seventh inning guy or an eighth inning guy when he's not being the guy in the back end of that bullpen? I don't know if he can do that. I got to be honest with you. I don't know. I have a tendency to believe that he cannot because, number one, even if you get him back to some sort of effectiveness, right? And he's not there right now, right? How long is the leash right now for Aroldis Chapman when the Yankees are within shouting distance of winning the American League East, right? They've taken control of the wild card. You know, how much room do you give Aroldis Chapman to run here before you have to start to look at other options? And then what the hell do you do with Aroldis Chapman if you decide to go down another avenue and have somebody assume the closer's role, or say you do what the Tampa Bay Rays do, and you do by closer by committee, and you have different guys, whether it be Green, whether it be Loaizaga, based on matchups, based on the lineup, about who would step into that position in the ninth inning. Now, that's difficult to do because we've seen closers, especially Chad Green, who is significantly better in that setup role than he has been when you've handed him the closer's duty.
And Boone said yesterday it's got to be all hands on deck, but at some point, having to get guys up behind Chapman is going to take its toll. I know we don't like talking about the up downs and the dry humping and all that stuff, but it obviously is a thing that teams think about. Yeah. You don't want to constantly have to have this plan B behind Chapman. That's going to take its toll because the Yankees are coming up on a stretch where they're going to play 20 games in a row. It's going to be harder and while you're challenging for the division, it's going to be harder, and I think Boone's been making the right call here on going to the bullpen earlier, getting Heaney out of the game, not leaving him out there to die like he did in Iowa, getting Jordan Montgomery out of the game earlier than maybe you would because he doesn't have his best stuff. I think that's been great for the Yankees to go to the bullpen, and the bullpen's been awesome, except for Chapman is still a liability since he's come back from the IL. Maybe he can't pitch back-to-back days. Maybe you're getting all these Chapman rules like we had the Jabba rules or whatever, and you have only these perfect scenarios when he can come in and close games. We've seen that with guys before. Obviously, Edwin Diaz has gone through his things there. The thing is, though, is at some point, whether it's the ninth or earlier, at some point you're going to need Chapman for a high-leverage situation. And the fact that you would have no faith, he's got no faith. Hell, you and I having no faith. Aroldis Chapman's on the mound, he's got no faith in throwing that fastball at times. It is all over the place. His chart last night from where balls and strikes were going was like somebody, like a blind person throwing darts at a board. I mean, that was nowhere close at times to the strike zone. And so it's just, it's a shame. And you mentioned a little bit, I'm just going to say it. You mentioned about the sweating. It's a lot.
It's awesome.
It's awesome, except if he can't grip the ball and he has to keep going back to the rosin. First of all, Aroldis Chapman basically moves into the mound when he goes out there. He's out there and just it's like an apartment. He's set up shop. He works so slow, and he's out there dripping. It's obviously hot. It's Atlanta in the summer. Even in New York, it's hot in the summer and disgusting. But does he need what is he doing before he even gets onto the mound that he has worked himself up into such a lather? I know he's wearing a turtleneck. I get that. But this guy, it's is he sparring in the back like he's getting ready for a prize fight? Does he need to see an endocrinologist? Why is he sweating this much?
I can't answer that. I can't tell you why he's sweating, but it's just
you're
amazing.
Someone who sweats a little bit. Moose, you've admitted that
he doesn't
before.
react well to the heat. That's what I tell Donna. I don't react well to the heat. I'm sure that's what Chapman.
Don't you trying to do something about it?
But I'm also not walking around with a turtleneck down on a Tuesday night in Atlanta. Then you're just cruising for a bruiser.
He's also not doing cardio out there. It's not like you said Patrick Ewing. Patrick Ewing was running up and down the court in Madison Square Garden.
I get it,
Chapman's not doing that.
Ewing was the GOAT of sweat.
Chapman has now taken that mantle.
He's close. He's right there. I mean, yeah, you can make the argument because of the fact of he's not a basketball player and he's not doing anything cardiovascular. You can look at it. But
if you do the same job that David Wells did, you are not cardiovascular. The need there is in cardio.
He's in significantly better shape.
I get it, but David Wells threw a perfect game and looked the way David Wells did.
I get it. I'm just looking at the idea of just the man's sweat is just off the charts. It's amazing to watch.
The brim of his cap
to watch
is dripping.
to watch the sweat drip off the front of the bill of his cap to just watch the sweat pouring off the back of his neck. It's amazing. It really is amazing. It does bring back memories of Patrick as a Knick, where he'd be sitting there at the free throw line or standing there at the free throw line getting ready to shoot free throws, and the sweat would just be pouring off of his chin, and then you'd feel bad for the towel guys and gals that have to go up there and mop the floor after Ewing was shooting free throws. Heaven forbid he should ever go down to the court. They'd basically have to get a squeegee because Patrick was sweating so much.
I mean, Aroldis Chapman doesn't have Hakeem Olajuwon also taking him down low. He's just sweating for the hell of it.
I know, but this is nothing new. I mean, he's been sweating like this, but last night when he's not working quickly and he's struggling, and he's taking an eternity between throwing pitches, and you have the yes camera just focused in on him, and you just see the sweat just pouring off of him, Maggie, you say to yourself, oh, wow, you just get a full appreciation of the deep sweat of Aroldis Chapman.
I guess it's an appreciation. I mean, even Steve Traxel's like, hurry it the hell up. I mean, it is taking a while, but obviously the guy's searching, and that's really the bigger point, is that he's searching when he loses command of the fastball. I mean, it's crazy. And how that inning started for him versus how it ended. Same in Boston. How it started, he gave up the home run in Boston, but it's just crazy as you watch somebody whose confidence starts leaking out of their body with that sweat. With that sweat, his confidence is also in a puddle on the mound. Like, that's freaking concerning. I'm sorry, it is. And it's great to have an 11-game win streak, and this is awesome that the Yankees are back in it. We love it. And I love watching them compete, and I love watching their success. But the Chapman thing is an issue. It is still an issue, and it is only growing now since he came back to the IL.
Right, for sure. I mean, and it's been an issue here, and it's been a talking point for a while, right? They're winning games, and now the question is, what do you do? Like, that's the bigger issue with Aroldis Chapman, who, isn't beloved by the Yankee fan because of, as you mentioned, the walk-offs that he has given up. Because of the smile that he's had on his face at times, especially when the Altuve home run down in Houston against the Astros. And so there's this kind of, here we go again with Aroldis Chapman, especially in the playoffs. Yeah, he did it for the Chicago Cubs, but he hasn't done it here and been that guy here for the Yankees. So now the burning question is, okay, for the Yankees is twofold. Number one is, how do you figure it out? Right? How do you figure out how much rope do you give them here before you say, all right, well, we're playing too well. It's one thing if we had a 6 or 7 game lead in the American League East, if we've got room to play with, then you know what? We can afford to kind of play around with Chapman to have him figure it out.
No, that's not chasing.
That's not the scenario we're in. I know they've cemented themselves at the wild card race, but since they've done that, now they're chasing the American League East, right? So now the question is, okay, how do you figure him out here? And then the leash, how long the leash is, and then what do you do here with him if you decide to go in another direction in that closer's role?
Listen.
Because this team has played too well, Maggie, to then have another gut-wrenching bad loss. And you saw it last night. Give Boone a lot of credit. We talk about not having a touch in the field, right? You're watching that game last night. He made the right decision to get Chapman out of that game and bring in Wandy Peralta. Made the right decision.
No, he had Peralta up when the first guy got on base.
Right, and that shows you the lack of confidence the Yankees have in Chapman right now, because obviously they saw something and say, well, Chappie doesn't have it tonight. 2 of his last 3 appearances, he has been replaced. Give the Yankees a little credit here for being progressive with their mindset when they're looking at their closer and not just dying on the vine with Aroldis Chapman.
Well, and they can always justify to him after and say, hey, you're coming off IL and we had you pitching on back-to-back days. We were just giving it a shot, see where you are. Like, if you need to placate his ego, which it seems like has to happen very often with Aroldis Chapman because of the kind of pitcher he is and the kind of person and all that stuff, then they had the built-in excuse there where he can kind of laugh it off or at least explain it away, not laugh it off. It's just not fixed. It's not fixed.
No, it's not.
And when you lose Britton and now, you can just say, hey, put Loizaga there. That's not so easy. First of all, the Yankees like their roles. Guys have had to switch around a little bit and be versatile, but in terms of pitchers, we know they like their roles. And I think they like Loizaga as the fireman. They like the fact that they can deploy him like they did last night in these crazy high leverage situations that come in the 6th and 7th inning. And I think they really rely on him there. I don't think it's so easy as just saying, well, we'll just throw him in the 9th inning.
No, I don't. And there's also a case of how's the pitcher going to react? Because there's a lot of pitchers that can handle it, and there's a lot of pitchers that are a lot more comfortable handling that, say, fireman role or that setup role in their bullpen, Maggie. But they might get to a point here where they're left with no choice, right? So say you take Britton out of the equation, Chapman, it's been a while since he's been dominant. We're going back to April and May when Aroldis Chapman was dominant, right? He had an ERA in 1 month this year where it was over 11. I mean, in the month of June. He's been downright terrible. His ERA in July was over 4. So he has not, and I know this month he's battled some injuries and been placed on the IL. So the Yankees, though, might not be left with any kind of a choice with Aroldis Chapman if he does not find it, right? Because you cannot continue to go into the ninth inning of a big playoff game or say a big game in September and say, well, if he doesn't have it, here is our backup plan. Because it's got to be a case of you're doing the job, this is your job, and the Yankees aren't there yet. Chapman's got to find it. If he doesn't, then Loaisiga would probably be the next man up because I don't think they're going to give it to Chad Green.
I'm looking up hyperhidrosis, Moose.
Yes.
It's too much sweating. Maybe an appointment at the Mayo Clinic might be in order. There's got to be something.
I think he just likes to sweat.
I don't think it's helping.
Well,
There's got to be something else because last night, Atlanta, he sweats like that in October. He sweats like that all the time. That was
And he was sweating like that in April and May. It just, you can
get a prescription cream.
It becomes more in focus when he's struggling
medications.
on the mound. That's when it becomes more in focus. Like last night, it was just.
Hey, you know what else helps sweating?
Yeah.
Botox. You can get Botox injections all over your body, and that will help with the excess sweating and get rid of the wrinkles in your face.
There you go.
Hey, 2 for 1.
Chapman looks young, though. I don't think he needs any Botox.
Everybody needs Botox. That's crazy. 877-337-6666. Moose and Maggie hanging out with you until 2 o'clock.